Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Our current session focuses on some theoretical concepts regarding language ideology. I hope and expect by the end of this session you would be able to understand what is language ideology and what is its significance. Well, my dear students, at the very outset, I would define the term ideology. Ideology is a systematic body of ideas organized from a particular point of view. This is a definition given by Kress and Hodge, 1979. Well, ideology is a contested concept. It is very debatable. Its reference and relevance cuts across various disciplines such as anthropology, sociology, political science, history, and cultural studies. And in fact, in each of these disciplines, including in linguistics and in ELT, it is defined in multiple ways and in varied ways. Linguistics is a much belated, in fact, and very bewildered entrant to this whole arena. And in spite of the fact that language and ideology are closely connected to linguistics, it was quite late in the study of language or in the study of language teaching that the concept of ideology was entertained. Well, here I'm going to share another definition of ideology where Thompson briskly says that phonological meaning in the service of power is what is ideology. The meaning that is created to create a certain kind of power. Therefore, to study ideology is to study the ways in which meaning serves to establish and sustain relationships of dominance. So, the sets of beliefs that are collective sets of beliefs of a group of people or of a society, they make an ideology of a society, and actually they determine the power positioning of that society or of certain people in that society. The best way to investigate ideology, according to Thompson, is to investigate the ways in which meaning is constructed and conveyed by symbolic forms of various kinds from everyday linguistic utterances to the very complex images and texts. So, ideology is prevalent at every level of communication. It requires us to investigate the social context within which the symbolic forms are employed and are deployed, and it calls upon us to ask whether, and if so, how the meaning mobilized by symbolic forms serves in particular contexts to establish and sustain relationships of domination. Well, my dear students, Cross-Crity 2000 in his original work suggested that it is profitable to think of language ideologies as a cluster of concepts. Now, this is important, cluster of concepts consisting of 4 converging dimensions. The dimensions that he has referred to include the first one, that is language ideologies represent the perception of language and discourse that is constructed in the intersects of a specific social group or a cultural group. Now, that is, notions of language and discourse are grounded in social experience. Whatsoever we speak, whatsoever discourse takes place, it has some kind of underpinning that is provided by the social experience that we have. Secondly, language ideologies are profitably conceived as multiple because of the multiplicity of meanings of social deviance, as class, gender, clan, elitism, generation, etc. within sociocultural groups have the potential to produce divergent perspectives expressed as, indices of group memberships. What he means by this is that multiple definitions of ideology in terms of power play in groups of class, gender, elitism, generation, etc. They provide us multiple perspectives on how these group memberships are retained and how, power operates in them. Thirdly, members may display varying degrees of awareness of local language ideologies, which means depending on the role they play, people develop different degrees of consciousness about ideological grounded discourse. And finally, the members' language ideologies mediate between social structures and the forms of the talk, which means the people's sociocultural experience and the interactive patterns contribute to their construction as well as their understanding of various language ideologies. So, the concept of ideology and power reflects in language ideologies as well. So the first definition relates to all the actual utterances or texts. The second one that I talked about relates to the specific formations in the fields, as in discourse of racism or in the discourse of feminism. Whereas the third refers to the socio-political structures that create the conditions that govern certain utterances or certain texts. No text is innocent. Every text reflects a fragment of the world we live in. And these texts are political because all discursive formations are political. Basically, the concept of ideology and the concept of language ideology propagates that power positionings exist in the use of language, and the power positionings of the groups or the societies of people who use those languages not only reflect in the language that they use, but also the language that people use. It creates certain kind of power for certain groups of people. So analyzing text or discourse means analyzing discursive formations which are political in character and are ideological in content.